Hey everybody, it's Derek here with Nascent, and in this video we're going to go through the thought process behind value-driven development, which is the methodology we employ here at Nascent. At a high level, value-driven development is trying the process of aligning all of your efforts and activities in a way that drives up value or return on investment. So when we think about software development in the modern age, four words need to drive all of our decision making: value, transparency, speed, and accuracy. And typically value is defined in the form of ROI. That might be new signups or products sold, or in the case of an internal application, lower call wait times or more widgets produced per hour, etc., right? So the first key to making sure that your software development project is providing value to your business is to define what success is, right? What are the key performance indicators, KPIs, right, that map back to a return on your investment? And typically in software systems, that maps to user behaviors. What do we want the users of the system to do that generates the value from the system, okay? And that definition process has to happen before even the design process happens, because the design is going to be geared around trying to drive those user behaviors to produce that value. If you aren't thinking about the project that way, it's really more of a science experiment or a hobby experiment than it is a business endeavor, okay? So just keep that in mind, because it's going to be one of the hardest things principles to adhere to. It's going to be real easy to get caught up in the emotions of our own theories and hypotheses, but the reality is we need to track data on what users are doing so that we can prove or disprove that whatever experiment we're currently running through the app actually provides the value that we are trying to provide. Okay, so along the way, we've got to produce software, right? And the key to making sure that you're on track before you release, right? You've got two phases of software development, right? There's the pre-release phase, and then there's the ongoing maintenance phase, right? So pre-release and post-release, you want to have, in maintenance, you want to have transparency into the process, but it's really important in pre-release because you're trying to get that initial experiment out into the market as fast as possible, and you want to make sure it's on the right path. So the way that you create transparency into a software development project is through the use of CI and CD tools. CI stands for continuous integration, and CD stands for continuous deployment. What will typically happen is once you're done with design and you start to list out all the work you could be doing, you'll enter it into a work item system like GitHub, right? So we can create a bunch of issues or work tickets in some sort of ticketing system, and then we prioritize them. We stack rank them and we say, hey, go tackle this, that, or the other in this order, okay? And this is all integrated with what's called a source control system, which is basically a fancy way of saying the place that the developers store their code or back it up, okay? So once the work orders are prioritized, a developer can grab one and put it, drag it over to the in-process column and start working on it, right? So why does this matter to this conversation? Well, at some point in time, they're going to finish the piece of work, and they're going to submit what's called a pull request. Pull request is going to go to the lead developer or project lead, and they're going to merge that person's code for that feature into the release branch, and that's going to trigger something called a build in the continuous integration system. Okay, so this system here that tracks our work items and our code gets integrated with this other system over here called Circle CI, which stands for Circle Continuous Integration. Could be Jenkins, could be a lot of different tools, but the point is this system detects that somebody merged a pull request and it tries to execute a build, okay? So continuous integration executes the build. What is the first thing it does? Well, it runs any test automation you've defined. Why does it do that? Well, If you've created some piece of code that breaks another piece of code, you don't want to actually deploy that. And you want to correct that regression as fast as possible. Because the earlier you can detect and fix it, the cheaper it is in the overall project structure to fix that problem. So whenever we write code, we also write automated tests that get fired by the continuous integration system every time code gets checked in, so that we can make sure that our code, the code that we just checked in, is safe to run and deploy. Okay? So this continuous integration system is going to run those tests. And if everything goes well, or even if everything goes bad, it's going to notify you that something went well or went bad. And how's it going to do that? Well, it could be an email, it could be a text alert. We always set up notifications channels in Slack. We have, per client, we have these notifications channels, and Circle CI will send over a notification that says success, hey, this has happened, this pull request got pushed with this change, or hey, it failed for whatever reason, the tests didn't work or the publish job didn't work. Okay, and so then you've got constant visibility into through chat notifications or emails, etc., into what's going on in the build system and the work. So that way, you know, work's always getting done, or when work isn't getting done, and you've got transparency into the process. So if everything goes swimmingly and the continuous integration system is able to execute the tests correctly, and then it notifies you that everything went well, then it's going to deploy the system for you to see. In the case of a website or a web app, it'll push it out to a web server, and it'll notify you, hey, this got pushed. You can go click this link and see it working and running. In the case of a mobile application, it's going to send you a link to TestFlight or Xplo or whatever the distribution mechanism is. It's going to say, hey, look, you can click this link and run it on your phone right now. Now, so you get a very, very speedy, near real-time feedback loop devised automatically with no human intervention after initial configuration, to let you know, hey, this is the work that's being done on your project. Now, why is that important? Why is it important to get that in front of you, the stakeholders' eyes, as fast as possible? Well, because we want to ensure accuracy, okay? Accuracy is the fourth and final pillar of modern software development. You want to quickly release software, and think about it also in the post-release world. You might be able to, you absolutely can set up your deployment automation to get it out into the market right away, right? So you could in the pre-release phase, we're getting the software to the stakeholder. In the post-release phase, we're getting it out to the users. We're running our experiments even faster to see what the user behavior looks like, okay? So this all drives us towards better accuracy in defining our experiments. Well, why is that? Well, in the pre-release phase, the accuracy is metric that we drive up is the correctness of the implementation. In other words, you as the stakeholder defined screen A should do action B when user executes gesture C, right? If it isn't the way you wanted it to be, you can catch that earlier in the development cycle, and you can tell the developer, hey, you went down the wrong path. You're a human being. We get it. Everybody makes mistakes, or we have miscommunications. That isn't what I intended, right? So let's go correct that. And the sooner you can correct that, the cheaper it is for everybody. Another type of pre-release or even post-release accuracy that you can drive, metric that you can drive up through this type of a process, is concept correctness. You might be sitting down as the stakeholder, might be sitting down with the designer and looking at a feature, and you guys are defining it in a vacuum in the design system, and it all sounds great, but the second you see it running inside the software, you're like, man, this is horrible. That happens to everybody, right? Nobody has a crystal ball, and nobody knows it's extremely difficult to conceptualize a priori what a software system ought to do in the end. So the key is to not even try. The key is to try to get it built and out as fast as possible so you can see, and as lean as possible, so you can see if the concept was correct or not, right? Now, in a post-release reality, when you're in maintenance mode and this continuous deployment is deploying to the market, this is also helping us drive up our experiment correctness metric, right? We're getting the feature to the user faster so that we can start to collect user behavior metrics faster, and we can determine if the experiment was accurate. Did this actually drive the behaviors we want inside the system to drive up our KPI and thus our ROI? Okay, and then once it is released, we've got runtime instrumentation that's going on in the form of analytics about user behavior, but we also have some sort of insight into things that might be happening that the user can't see, like recoverable errors and things like that. So that's just another added benefit of the type of automation that we use. But through these tools, through this automation, through these platforms, we are able to increase our accuracy. We can deploy to the market quicker. We can validate the accuracy of our deployment. And we use these tools to make that happen quickly and automatically without human intervention or human error, right? Because once it's scripted, it executes the same way again and again and again. We don't have the possibility of human error quite so much anymore, right? And all of these efforts and endeavors take place to try to drive up or to generate certain user behaviors which map to key performance indicators, which we defined based on the ROI that we're trying to generate from the app. And so now we've got a closed loop, a full circle. We're driving all of our development efforts off of business value. Okay? And that's what we want to do, because if we're not doing that, it's just a science experiment, right? And those are fun, but typically these kind of projects are here to create business value. All right? Thanks so much, and thanks for watching.